ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयामदेवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेमदेवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्तिः 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 ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः 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 नान्तः प्रज्ञं न बहिष्प्रज्ञं नोभयतः प्रज्ञं न प्रज्ञानघनं न प्रज्ञं न अप्रज्ञम् अदृष्टम् अव्यवहार्यम् अग्राह्यम् अलक्षणम् अचिन्त्यम् अव्यपदेश्यम् एकात्मप्रत्ययसारम् प्रपञ्च उपशमम् शान्तं शिवम् अद्वैतं चतुर्थं मन्यन्ते स आत्मा स विज्ञेयः. So we have seen that it is not an object of the sense organs, or it is not subject to action, agrahyam. So going further, alakshanam. Lakshanam na vidyate yasya, for which there is no definition, cannot be defined as something, this Atma, which is said to be Brahman. And of course, Brahman has a big definition. We saw that Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, etc. And here it says Alakshanam. Alakshanam means the general ways in which you describe something, even indirectly. Like, for example, you can say Ashvo Dhavati, the horse runs. And this is a direct meaning of the sentence. You're not looking for anything extra. The horse runs. This is just a direct meaning of the word horse. And then what is the horse doing? It runs. Simple. But supposing somebody, is wanting to place a bet in a racing situation, and then they get a tip off. Shveto dhavati. Shvetaha means white. The white runs. White is a color, it cannot run. Even if you figuratively talk about colors running in the wash, even that is not possible. And now we find that actually it's a tip off. The white horse always wins. And so the tipster is telling a betting person, guess what? Shveto Dhavati, put your money on the white one. So we have to supply the word horse, correct? White runs, but then the horse is indirectly understood through this mechanism called lakshana. The white indicates the horse because it doesn't fit, simply because it doesn't fit anywhere else, and also because prakritam, in the context, that is the only thing that fits, because we are talking of white running. And so and then it is a race, it's a race course where this conversation is being had. And so you understand from that, from the context, that this is the indirect meaning of the word. So lakshana here means, the here, that is not the meaning of the word lakshana. Brahma lakshanam satyam jnanam anantam, so that is a different technical term, lakshana. Here alakshanam means it is free of attributes, no characteristics to catch on to. You cannot say, in fact, you cannot even categorically say it is Satyam. It exists. Satyam is a word that indicates existence. It is not an attribute of Atma or Brahman. It is not. And you cannot say Sat Chit Ananda are attributes or even definitions that, okay, Sat Chit Ananda, definitions of Brahman, definitions of Atma. They are not definitions. They are words that indicate, and the Atma being self-evident, self, then it is it is understood because it is never unavailable. It is always anubhuti swarupataya, in the form of I experience. It is always available. It is always known. It is a known I, but we have to say a partially known I that comes to the Vidya, because the partial knowledge, the half knowledge, as they say, is dangerous. And so the partial knowledge creates all kinds of complexes because one is free enough to come to wrong conclusions about the nature of the I. But then the I cannot be defined, cannot be caught. And you cannot have some three convenient words, Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, to define Brahman, to define Atma, even though it is taught like that. It is taught like that because as Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi put it, the words Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam are like signposts that lead you to the Atma. Like if you drop off, if you stop at some if you're going from place to place and you stop at a what is that called, rest area, where there is little cafe, restrooms, dog walking area, all this will be there. And then you stop there and you wonder where, where are the bathrooms. And then you see one sign, restrooms, and you see a finger pointing that way. That is not the restroom. This the sign that is pointing to this, that's not the restroom. You have to go where it leads you. That is the restroom. Cafe, another finger, there is a sign with a painted finger pointing that way. So you go to the cafe there, you go to have your coffee and your snacks over here. And so the finger is pointing there. You can't just start eating that finger because you're hungry. That is not going to do anything. You can't catch hold of the finger and hope the hunger to be satisfied. No. You have to go there. And similarly, Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, they are various signposts to recognize that which is never unrecognized, which ironically needs to be recognized as what it is, because it is more often than not taken to be what it is not without this instruction. So therefore, alakshanam, lakshanam na vidyate yasya, it doesn't have any particular attribute. You cannot say the size of the atma is such, the color of the atma, no color, no size. And the Mundaka verse describes this very well. Avarnam, agotram, apanipadam, no color, no gotra, no lineage. Atma must come from a very exalted lineage. What is the name of the rishi from which the Atma has come? Rishi is also Atma, and Atma is not the rishi. We've seen this. It's all just one way. And so, alakshanam, there is no lakshana. Even though we say lakshana, the lakshana is what denied as something here to be caught hold of, because we have a categorical, the human beings have a categorical mind. So as soon as the words Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam are somewhat understood, as soon as you listen to that, Satchidananda, Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, the Ahankara and the mind wants to just catch hold of it and then nail it to the wall. Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, and say, this is Atma. Whereas those are just sopana, rungs of the ladder to lead you back to yourself. It's just a staircase to lead you back to yourself, because you feel lost without them. So they are just aids. They are just aids. They are not attributes or even definitions of the Atma. Then next one, Achintyam. Achintyam, very nice word. You know, chinta here is not worry or anxiety. Chinta is thought process. So that which cannot be enclosed by a thought. Why? It's not an object of the thought. Simple. It's not, we've seen this in detail. So the cognizer cognized divide is there because the Atma is not known as the truth of simultaneous truth of the cognizer and the cognized, because of which the cognizer is, because of which the cognized is, which is neither cognizer nor cognized. If this is not understood, then one is trying to have chinta, a kind of a wrong inquiry into the Atma. And we are, and all these become our Purva Pakshis, sparring partners to better understand the I. So one person says, Atma Deha Parimana, Atma is as big as the body. Oh, really? Yeah. Body gets dirty every day. Atma gets dirty too. Mind is full of raga and dveshas and full of impurities. If mind is impure, then Atma is impure because Atma is as good as the body. This is one kind of a chinta. Yatra sa chinta pravartate. Where this chinta abides, then there is no Atma Jnanam. And then all these darshanas come under this chinta. Everyone trying to, what should I say, logically, quote unquote, establish the Atma. Does the self revealing I need to be established? Absolutely not. There is nothing to establish. It's already self revealing. It was there before you even could say the word established and learn how to spell it. It was already there. In fact, because of the word, because of Atma, you could learn the word establish. In fact, this ahankara, so to speak, is established in the Atma, so to speak, not the other way around. But it hasn't prevented groups of people called, where matas means various darshanas, various points of view to establish themselves as oh, we have got the atma, if not the whole atma, at least a piece of it we have got. After all, even the upanishad is quartering the atma into four. So what's wrong if I have a little piece that you can understand? And so the logician comes along skipping. Nayayika is the name. And this Nayayika, along with his or her friend Vaisheshika. Vaisheshika means this, what is that, a very, like wearing, to continue with the horse example, wearing blinkers, cannot see here, cannot see the only one thing. And the Vaisheshika has another friend also wearing blinkers, Ekadeshi, just harps on one particular argument. And then, of course, there is one who is sitting quietly. What is your view? Why are you sitting quietly? Well, let them all have it out. Oh, you're a Vedantin. No, no, no. I just believe in nothing. So, what is there to engage? Because everything is a big zero. Bauddha. All these people, they are, they are all, what is that? Atma Chintakaha. They call themselves Atma Chintakaha. Gaudapada Acharya points this out. And then so they call, even though they call themselves the they call themselves thinkers of the Atma, they come with big theories. But then they are not being displacing, they are not ready to displace their ahankara, because this knowledge knocks off the thinker as an entity separate from that which is thought of as an entity that is separate from the object of cognition. If this is not understood, then the ahankara is just adjusting its cushions and sitting down in the place of the pramata, sitting nicely in the deep overstuffed sofa of all kinds of wrong notions. This is what the whole thing is, making itself comfortable. It has to be uprooted with the help of this Upanishad. It is not allowing itself to be uprooted. That's why you get all these nonsensical darshanas, nonsensical chinta. And Gaudapadacharya says they are not Atma Chintakaha, they are Srishti Chintakaha. He makes this point very clear. Srishti Chintakaha means they are obsessed with coming to conclusions about the cosmology of the universe. Where did this come from? We are not interested in that. Even though we have all these, what's that, creation Shruti. So we have Abhivyakti Shruti, Pravesha Shruti, Srishti Shruti, all this we have. So Kamayata, etc., etc. And then, everything was created. And then this being, this glorious Satyam Jnanam Anantam, this being as Ishvara entered each and every aspect of the creation. And that is where our focus is. Our tatparya is on the non-separation of the effect from the cause. So we use the cause-effect prakriya, the methodology, only to illustrate the non-separation of the effect from the cause. Cause transcends the effect. Effect is non-separate from the cause, only to illustrate that. We are not interested in what came first, what came second, what came third. And then 6 days of construction of the world, and then Bhagavan rested. All this is metaphorical, it cannot be taken literally. And so we are not interested in what came the first day, second day, etc. That is not where our focus is. Our focus is entirely different. Our focus is in understanding that this so-called creation is not separate from you. So really it need not be accounted for, because it is mithya, it is ultimately dependent on you. And you cannot be not accounted for ever. So you cannot be not accounted for. The srishti, the creation, can never be accounted for, because whatever is the effect becomes the cause, whatever is the cause becomes the effect. It's a big, it's a big, it's like bhel puri. You don't know what, you don't know what is all in it. It's like a big mixture. And so anything you start to account for in the srishti, in the creation, leads you on a merry-go-round of infinite regress. Infinite regress, infinite regrets afterwards. That's all it is. Because you say, okay, where did this come from? This flower came from the tree, magnolia tree. Magnolia tree came from seed. And where did that seed come from? Another tree, another seed, another tree. Or you can go down another road, which is again very interesting. And what is this is, this is what is it? Quintessential Swamiji, Pujya Swamiji. What is the definition of tree? That which has treeness. That which has treeness is a tree. And so, where is this treeness located, if you ask? It cannot be located in the tree, because the definition of tree is that which has treeness. What is that? What is that which possesses the treeness? Because the treeness cannot be located in the tree. And it's kind of funny to say that the treeness is located outside of the tree. So what is that which has the treeness? That is Atma, that is Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, which makes the tree a tree, which makes the bee a bee. And that's what it is. That because of which something is. This is what we are talking about. That's why we are not bothered about what came first, what came second, and, from Brahman, from this, and then 5 elements, 3 elements. We are not interested in that. Even though the Shruti, out of some politeness to popular demand, might discuss these things, then that is not where the focus is. So Gaudapadacharya reserves his critique of what he calls Srishti Chintakaha. They say they are doing chinta, enquiry into Atma, but actually they are obsessed with something that is not really there. that is as good as non-existent from the standpoint of the Atma. That which comes and goes is as good as not there. That which is dependent on this Atma is as good as not there separately. So that which doesn't have a separate existence, you are going to do a separate philosophy on that which doesn't even have a separate existence. What's the point? It's a huge, colossal waste of time. That is what Gaudapadacharya says. These Srishti Chintakaha, they couch themselves as Atma Chintakaha. They are not Atma Chintakaha. They are obsessed with where the Srishti came from, what is happening, and they consider themselves great philosophers. And they compare the Srishti to building a castle, palace, mansion. So then they say, well, let us logically establish Ishvara. Logically establish Ishvara? How? Well, just bear with me, they will say. And they come to a postulate, a hypothesis. Idan jagat sakartrikam. This jagat must be, must have a karta, must have an author. This jagat must have an author. Idam jagat sakartrikam. This jagat must have an author. Why? You know, because all these, you see the creation, you don't see the author, so you infer that anything that is created must have an author. Okay, all right, I'm with you. This is a good use of logic. Just as you're patting the fellow on the back, he does a 180 and he says, he comes to the conclusion, idam jagat aneka kartrikam. Actually, let me edit myself, says the logician. There must be many Ishwaras, not just one, because look at the complexity of the Jagat. And even to build one mansion, you need 20 people. You need an architect, you need a mason, you need a carpenter, you need a person who stains the glass, windows, and doors, and you need people to install that. And then plumbing, and God knows what else, all kinds of things, lighting, plumbing, all these things. You need so many people to, it's impossible for one person to build a palace. So therefore it is impossible for poor singular one Ishvara to build this entire Jagat. You see, this is Srishti Chintaka, because they're taking the Srishti to be real, and therefore they're taking the complexity to be real. And of course, the only thing that they're not taking to be real is Ishvara, because they're projecting Ishvara as another person with the same finite energy as the person who is doing the Chintanam. Srishti Chintakaha, Nayayikaha. And logically, anekatmakatvat prasadadivat. So just like you see a complex, what is that, castle being built on earth, how difficult it is, how many mistakes are lying there waiting to be made, and how many times you have to check and recheck the measurements and put that thing with a bubble in the middle, what is that called, the leveler, and you have to make sure, otherwise you'll have a lopsided house. And so therefore Ishvara also has to do all that. How ridiculous. And so these, even though they call themselves philosophers, they are philosophers of the manifest universe. They are not philosophers of, of what is Ishvara, what is Atma, because they are stuck to the Jagat, because they take the Jagat to be separate from themselves. And if Jagat is separate from themselves, Ishvara is separate from them. If Ishvara is separate from them, Jivas are also separate from them. So this separation philosophy, masquerading rather as a, as a philosophy of the self, is laid bare. Why? Because this Atma, which was described as being just nothing other than Brahman, is Achintyam. Achintyam, cannot. Chintana vidyate atra. Here there is no conclusions possible. In fact, all the conclusions are the ones that have to be eradicated. But then isn't Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam a conclusion? It's not a conclusion. It's that it is an indicatory set of words to get rid of all wrong conclusions. And you cannot categorically conclude what the Atma is, because it's the Swarupa of the concluder. So what conclusion? The one who is the one who knows the Atma, for that person, samsara comes to a conclusion. Atma doesn't come to a conclusion. Samsara is packed up, shipped off. That's all. Samsara disappears. And so therefore, this is what achintyam. You cannot really have a philosophy. Vedanta is not a philosophy. Vedanta is not a darshana. That's why I took the time to explain this earlier. Vedanta is not a point of view. It is a fact. It's not a point of view. If it's not a point of view, it must be you. That's all it is. You are not a point of view. So if I ask, what are you? Supposing, even in a casual, empirical level, Vyavaharika meeting, who are you? Well, I am so and so. I mean, all these conclusions come out. But nobody says, I'm a point of view. My mother thinks me to be an idiot. In my father's view, I'm a useless, hopeless fellow. Nobody comes to that. Nobody says that. Even in and through all the mistakes made centered on the self, nobody says, I'm a point of view. But these chintakahas, they are very well equipped with their with their stencils, with their manuscript leaves, and they keep writing Sankhya, Vaisheshika, Nayayika, Bauddha, Ekadeshi, this, that, all these people. Obsessed they are about the creation, because they take it to be real. And if you take mithya to be satyam, satyam becomes mithya, mithya becomes satyam. This is what happens. And so, you know, so therefore what? Achintyam. And then, very interesting, avyapadeshyam. Vyapadesha is, what is that? Shastra. Vyapadesha here is Shastra, teaching. Avyapadeshyam. Navyapadesha yogyam. Meaning, it cannot really be taught or told of as an object. So the Shastra teaches in a unique way, and that's going to be talked about in Ekatma Pratyaya Saram. The Shastra teaches in a very unique way. It teaches by removing wrong notions and conclusions, primarily, and by indicating who you are. And then that vritti jnanam, that mental vritti that takes place in the process of the teaching, that is what eradicates the knowledge, not the words of the Shastra. The words of the Shastra are just words. They are heap of words. That's why when Shaunaka asks, what is Paravidya? Shaunaka is told by his teacher in the Mundakopanishad, Dve Vidye Veditavye iti hasma. There are two kinds of knowledges that have to be known. What are they? One is Aparavidya. Aparavidya means relative knowledge. Paravidya, ultimate knowledge, knowing which there is nothing more to be known, nothing, and it is self knowledge. And Aparavidya is all other, constitutes all other branches of knowledge, including philosophy, including Vedas. So then he says, what is Aparavidya? And the teacher lists Rig Veda. Array, Aitari Upanishad got just cancelled. Yajurveda, Kathopanishad, and a host of other Upanishads got just cancelled. Sama Veda, bye bye Chandogya, Atharva Veda, bye bye Mandukya. Everything got cancelled. As what? Mere Aparavidya, relative knowledge. Array, I was hanging on to the Upanishads thinking this is absolute knowledge. You see, as soon as you say this is idantaya grahanam, this, when you do this grahanam, when you catch hold of something with the word this, it immediately becomes apara. It becomes part of the srishti. And that's why academic study of the Upanishad is aparavidya. Alone it can never, never, never. The sun will rise from the west, but this will not become paravidya. Because where you parse and mince and cut and, dice and slice words of the Shastra, it will never bless. It because these are heaps of words. That's what the words are activated in the form of a live coals of the pramana, and they are operated as a means of knowledge. And then even then you cannot say that this is paravidya. So what converts the heaps of words into the teaching in the from the mouth of the teacher, that you can say are the beginnings of the, that's the segue from apara to para. Then from the mouth of the student, sorry, the teacher, to the ear of the student, when that shravanam takes place, when that akhandakara vritti is a big name for a feeling of oneness, for the recognition of oneness, that aha moment that you have in the class, or a series of aha moments, what happens in your heart when you hear the words, that alone is Paravidya. Vrittignanam it is called. This is Paravidya. Yaya Aksharam Adhigamyate. That by which the imperishable is understood as you. That is Paravidya. Everything else is Apara. Apara, apara, apara. Therefore, Avyapadeshyam. Even though Shabdam, you know, Shabdat Jatam, Shabdam, even though Shabdam Eva, it is dependent upon words, it is dependent upon the teacher. Because the teacher can be teaching, but nothing happens because raga dveshas are crowding the mind, whatever the reason may be. The student is fast asleep, possibility number one. Student nodded off, possibility number two, raga dveshas are too many. Possibility number three, the student is daydreaming, having some thought somewhere and has gone off in an inner world, manorajya. So because of that, vritti doesn't take place. So Shabdam Eva, it is, yes, based on Shabda, born of Shabda, this Pramana, but the Pramana received is Paravidya, the receipt of this Pramana in the heart, the welcoming of this oneness in the heart, the seeing this oneness in the heart, as a result of which the heart blossoms, heart transforms, and the heart welcomes Ishvara as the truth of oneself, and that inner Ishvara darshanam as the truth of oneself, that aha, and seeing everything as the glory of Ishvara, omifying the universe as a result, and then Ishvarizing the universe and Ishvarizing the oneself naturally. That is Paravidya. Everything else is apara. So how to teach this? You don't really teach it. You just you deploy the words as your teacher deployed the words, as his teacher deployed the words, as her teacher deployed the words. And in each generation, in each teaching situation, those words are new. Same words, Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma, but each situation, with each audience, with each time it is taught, it is ever new. Why is it ever new? Because the teaching situation is so sacred, even over Zoom. Trust me. The teaching situation is so sacred that it lends itself to the present. So even supposing, and we used to do this when we were students, saying when we were students, we were made to teach in front of Pujya Swamiji. There was a there were sessions just for that. Everybody was quaking. How to teach in front of the greatest teacher in the whole world. And so the preparation, by way of preparation, we were told by people who, our senior guru bhais and guru behens, all the other brahmacharis who went before us, they would say, just listen to Pujya Swamiji's that particular verse that you have to teach, listen to how he taught, and just copy that. Sit on the dais and just say whatever he said. So much easier said than done. Okay. So we would dutifully listen, not once, not twice, three times, and then take the notes and everything. And then something funny would happen. You sit there and then you forget everything you studied. You forget what you listened to. You forget whatever you had thought you would by heart. And some brahmacharis were such good students that they would even by heart Pujya Swamiji's jokes to be able to be delivered at that correct time, and everything was gone. You something is there in the parampara. You sit on that dais and something happens, and whatever comes. And that is basically what it is. Because because not only because the teacher is inimitable, definitely that is true. The glory of the teacher is the glory of the teacher. But one wonderful thing one learned is that not only the teacher cannot be aped, the teacher need not be imitated. Why? Because you, as a student, have been given this body, this mind, this upadhi. And if this upadhi is going to be a teacher, if it's going to be a teaching upadhi, it has a few things to say that is going to help some other people even without you knowing it yourself. And you have to trust that. So, really speaking, you're not doing any teaching. You're just deploying the methodology in a similar way that the teacher did. You're deploying the same methodologies, but in your own way, with your own, with your own, the force of your own upadhi. You're using the gifts of your mind, the gifts of vak, etc., God-given gifts, which have been polished by the teacher. And you're just showing yourself off as what? As a contribution of your teacher. The glory belongs to the lineage, the glory belongs to the teacher. Therefore, avyapadeshyam, you're not coming up with anything new. Yenastadvyachachakshire, the Kenopanishad also says. The teacher in the Kenopanishad, when the student expresses awe, says, we are only teaching what we can only teach what we ourselves were taught. Nothing more, nothing less. So, really speaking, there is no teaching going on. There is just a sharing of the parampara. And that sharing of the parampara is received, is done humbly and received humbly. And in that, that is what makes the parampara go further. Beyond you. The parampara is beyond you. It includes the teachers and the students, but it transcends them also. And so this is what is avyapadeshyam, that which cannot be by hearted and taught. And even though part of us thought we forgot everything because we were nervous, that was only part of the story. Because this knowledge is really one of a kind, inimitable. The point is not to imitate the teacher, the point is to be yourself. And in that self discovery, whatever you share for yourself primarily, you share yourself. And if some people are benefited, it is a wonder, ashcharya. That is what is avyapadeshyam, and cannot be, even though it is shabda pramana, we say the words don't create the knowledge. Even a handled pramana may not create the knowledge. It's the vritti jnanam. It is that which happens, which cannot really be accounted for. That almost esoteric exchange, that which happens between, in a teaching situation, between the teacher and the disciple, when the disciple finally sees what is being shown and assimilates that which is shown as the truth of oneself. That is what is called the teaching. So therefore there is no teaching, there is no by hearting, there is no taking notes. And even if you do take notes, it is again for the vritti jnanam to take place. Those are all preparations. Therefore avyapadeshyam. And then what? Ekatma pratyaya saram. This is a ekatma pratyaya sarah, bahuvrihi compound, very involved compound. So let us look at it. Ekah eva atma iti pratiti. Ekah eva atma, that there is only one atma, which was previously described in mantra number 2 as I am atma brahma. This one atma alone is Brahman. There is no other atma. Ekah eva atma iti pratiti. Pratiti here, pratyaya, same thing. The cognition that there is only this atma, which is myself alone, that there is only one self, iti cognition is called ekatma pratyaya. And how is this pratiti gained? Saram, through the pramana, which we have been talking about. Saraha here is pramana. Ekatmanah pratiti, ekatmanah pratyayasya saram, ekatma pratyaya saram. Ekatma, or you can even take it like this: Ekatma iti pratiti saram yasya. Then it is bahuvrihi, ekatma pratyaya sarah, tam ekatma pratyaya saram. So, what does this mean? That there is only non-dually one Atma. Because whenever the word ekam is used, ekaha is used by the Shruti, you have to say one that never becomes two, that on this side, and never becomes half and one fourth on the other side. That kind of a one, non-dually one, one that is not followed by two or preceded by half. That is the definition of non-dually one. A one that is not an addition of various fractions, and the one that is not a member of a set which is then going to become 2, 3, 4, etc. This is what is called Ek Atma. And then how is it recognized? It has to be recognized as I alone. There is no other way to recognize it. If there is only one thing, it cannot exclude. The seer of that thing cannot be separate from the seen. The seer is the seen, and there is no different, there is no difference here. Ultimately the seer seen division, the cognizer cognized division, subject object division, knower known division, all that is just ekaposhana. You sip it all in one. You just swallow it up. All the differences are swallowed in this pratiti, in this recognition, in this recognition that I am neither thinker nor an object of thought nor a means of thinking. I am the content of the thinker. I am that which is threads the thinker and the thought together, while neither being a thinker nor being the object of thought. Just like those waves, pramana wave, prameya wave, and then what else? Pramata wave, knower wave, known wave, means of knowledge is one wave. And the ocean just sports the waves without becoming any one of them. The ocean transcends the wave, and the waves are fighting it out amongst themselves. I am better than you. Without me, you cannot exist. This is what they are doing. And so the standpoint here, the vantage point, like when you're driving in mountainous regions, sometimes they point out Vista Point, there is a sign, and you take the car to the edge of this cliff and you see the whole world. Ah, wonderful. So this is the vantage point. And what do you see from this vantage point? Nowhere. That's just a little wave. Known, that's just a little wave. And means of knowledge, that's another wave. What am I? I'm the entire vista. I transcend everything. I'm the ocean that transcends everything, transcends all the waves. Waves come and go. They are just a manifestation of myself. I am I am beyond the waves. This is what is, this is the Ekatma Pratyaya. And how is it accomplished? Saraha. Saraha means Vrittigyanam. Vrittigyanena Pratiti Yasya. So that is what is called vritti jnanam, is a technical term. Vritti jnanam we saw a little bit earlier, but it is that which happens when you hear these words, when the teacher's words help blossom in the heart of the student. And that blossoming that takes place is called vritti jnanam, that recognition of the I. It's similar to the recognition of any object in the universe, like even a rose. You look at a rose and say, "This is rose." So there are two operations here. One is called vritti vyapti. It's almost as though the eyes and the nose here go out, they trot off, encircle the rose, and bring it back to the mind as an object of thought. Because they want to see, is this a rose? Does it have a fragrance? So the sense of smell and the sight go together to cognize this rose and then bring back information, because as soon as I say the word rose, something has already happened in the mind. Rose vritti has taken shape, has taken form. But then, is that rose vritti correct? Is it in tandem with what is seen? That's why the mind and the sense organs go and bring back information. Sorry, the sense organs go, bring back, wrap around the rose, bring back the information about the rose to feed the mind. And then the mind concludes, yes, this is rose. And supposing you had in your when the word rose was uttered, what did you see? You saw a red rose, but this one happens to be pink. Quickly an adjustment is made, an invisible adjustment is made before you come to what is called phalavyapti, the second part of the conclusion of the concluding portion of this understanding, that this is a rose, where you objectify the rose. And then same thing in the Atma? No, not quite. Similar, but not completely there. Why? Vritti Vyapti is similar. You are Nitya, Shuddha, Buddha, Mukta, Atma. You are that is which is forever. You are free. You are all knowledge. Vritti Vyapti. And so the mind recognizes that. But then the this cognition, this is I, is not possible, and it is not needed, and it is not there. Phalavyapti is not there. The vritti jnanam alone does this, but then the vritti doesn't stick around. It dies away. Kshanika vritti. Vritti is kshanika. It's just a thought. The thought does its job and self-destructs, so to speak. And in the what does the thought do? The thought is in the form of a live pramana coming from the teacher to the student, and the heart of the student is enclosed in a wall along with barbed wire on top for good measure. And this is the heart of the student. No, distrustful, nothing, not letting anything in. And each and every brick has been carefully handed down by the families, Raga and Dvesha. And some bricks have been collected, from the wayside on the journey of life. The barbed wire was given by some well-meaning friends, and you can never be careful enough, you can never be safe enough. So barbed wire and shards of glass that are all there, protecting from what? From the whole horrible, dangerous jagat and other jivas. Only thing this wall and this barbed wire combo cannot protect is from you. And that's where you need the protection. From the very wall you need the protection. And the words of the teacher are like flowers vritti, the vritti jnanam that is generated through the words. They may be like soft flowers, but as soon as they hit the wall crumbles. It is ready to crumble. It crumbles. And then what? And then the person is free. Oh, Ishvara, when did you come? I have always been here. Idiot, I've always been here. And then the newly enlightened person says, not idiot, idioteshwara, because I am Ishvara too. So I am Ishvara. I am the one that is seeing the truth of myself. Idiot, all right, I have been, but in the form of Ishvara. So this is what it is. So there is no phala vyapti needed. There is only vritti vyapti. The vritti means the thought of oneness comes, blesses the mind, removes the ignorance removing thought comes, and since the thought is momentary, the thought goes away, and leaving in its wake a person who is free. And then what? So then, end of class, I can go my own way. Well, the wall may come back as though, because there are orientations of distrust. The knowledge has definitely taken place, but the orientations of distress are too many, and then they have to be this orientation, the true orientation of the self being Brahman, has to replace the other orientations, mistaken orientations. Therefore, paunaf punyena shravanam kuryat, again and again you have to listen. You have to wear out, you have to tire out all the old orientations. And because the orientations are also on a treadmill, trying to keep up with this knowledge, huff puff, huff puff, huff puff, huff puff, they are running. You have to tire them out. Then they say, I just feel nauseous. The wrong orientation says, I feel funny, I feel like throwing up. Okay, go sleep, go rest, and let me rest in my glory. This is what the whole thing is. So, in the beginning, when you are doing Shravanam, the orientations are trying to outrun you on the treadmill. See, I can go faster, faster, faster. Let them go faster. You slow down, you relax, let them self destruct. That is why Ekatma Pratyaya Saram doesn't mean that which is removed in one shot and after that you can go away. Traditionally, not so. Some committed exposure is needed. And if that doesn't do the trick, then all the impediments have to be removed through mananam, through meditation, through asking questions, through contemplation, nididhyasana, etc., etc. All the habitual orientations are removed. And then what? Prapancha upashamam, that knowledge of the Atma which has the ability to make the samsara poof disappear. Where is samsara? You ask a jnani, where is samsara? They will say, in your head. That's the truth. There is no samsara. Because in sushupti, deep sleep, where is samsara? No samsara. There is no samsara at all. And, there is no credit card debt. There is no feeling that I'm not loved. There is no feeling that I don't like the neighbor. There are no feelings whatsoever. There is no feelings connected to the body. I'm fat, I'm thin, I'm not tall enough. Nothing. No samsaras. Therefore, samsara upashama is not that the jagat disappears. Therefore, I'm afraid to study this knowledge, because what will I do if the jagat disappears? The jagat disappears as a source of pain and sorrow. The Jagat reappears as you, as Ishvara. The Ishvarized Jagat reappears as an extension of you. The subjectivity connected to the Jagat, which converts the Jagat into samsara, that disappears. Samsara disappears for you. Upashamam. Like a placid lake, one is finally at peace with oneself without needing to die. And that is the lasting peace, I tell you, because even if one were to die, that peace is what? Temporary. Because the force of the desires, including the desire for Vedanta, makes one be born again. And you have to start to learning all the things again, all over again. A for apple, B for ball, C for cat, D for dog. You have to do this. And sitting right there, you have a kind of an unpleasant deja vu. I think I've done this before. So here, prapancha upashamam means there is no rebirth, there is no coming back, no punaravritti, because one is a jivan mukta. Shantam. Shantah. And then the Shastra talks about two kinds of Shantis. One is the Shanti that one wants in the everyday. It is called what is called Vyavaharika Shanti, empirical Shanti. I want the significant other to never argue with me. I want Shanti. I want the children never to become teenagers. I want that kind of Shanti. I want everything to go my way. And for me to just lead my life, I want Shanti. This is the Shanti that one prays for. This is the Shanti that you say at the end of every Shanti mantra. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let there be Shanti for me, O Lord, O Goddess, from the source that is beyond me, beyond my control, which is from Adi Daivika. Adi Bhautika Shanti is also included here in Vyavaharika Shanti. And what is that? From my surroundings. Some construction going on somewhere, some noise of traffic, all these things, let it not be there. And then finally, I pray for Shanti from within. Let not my mind do some acrobatics, raga and dvesha doing circus and tightrope walking from one edge of the mind to the other, keeping me on edge. I want Shanti. This is what is called Shanti at the level of the mind, at the level of the empirical world, in the everyday transactional Shanti. But then the Shastra says there is a Shanti beyond that. It is called Swarupa Shanti. Oh, I want that too. What is that? Swarupa Shanti is that because gaining which there is nothing that disturbs you. How do I gain this? You need not gain this. It is your Swarupa. It is already there. You mean I have Shanti? Yes. Not only you have Shanti, you are Shanti. And by that I don't mean that your name is Shanti. If that happens to be your name, well and good. But you are Shanti. You are Shanta Swarupa. Swarupa Shanti. Which is gained by understanding that I am Brahman. No other way can it be gained because it's never away from you. Ashanti comes because you think the Jagat to be separate. You think Ishvara is far away and remote, and that's why you're anxious. You have Ashanti. And then you think the mind is something that you cannot conquer. That's why your mind is separate from you, Ashanti. So the sources of Ashanti are the Jagat, other jivas, all these things. And here, Shantam, Prapancha, Upashamam, there is nothing separate from you. So how can for the Shanti there Ashanti there should be a source other than you. There is nothing other than you. Nothing at all. All that is there is you alone. And this you has got to be known. It's going to be told later. So the Vyavaharika Shanti and Swarupa Shanti, what is the difference? Vyavaharika Ashanti, the restlessness in the everyday world, is a product of not of self-ignorance, of not knowing the truth of yourself as Shanta, because undisturbed. Knowing which the Jnani is described in the Bhagavad Gita as one Guruna api dukkhena na vichalyate, the one who is unmoved even by the greatest of sorrows. Sorrow may be felt at the level of the mind, but the Jnani knows I am not the sum total of my mind. I am not my emotions. Emotions are me. I am not the emotions. Mind is, of course, me. I am not the mind. This is not about dissociation. I am not the mind, I am not the body, and then you keep blinking. You know, you know, and you're in some kind of a strange self denial. That's not the point. I am not the mind. Mind is blessed by me. Mind cannot be without me. Mind is, of course, me. Mind is included in I, but I transcend the mind. When you say this, when you are able to see this, that is Swarupa Shanti. Yesham Brahmi Sthithif Partha Nainam Prapya Vimuhyati Sthitva Syam Antakalepi Brahma Nirvanam Richati. This is what is described in the last verse of the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. This Shanti is that even in the last moment of your life, when you understand the truth of yourself, when you understand yourself as that Swarupa here, Shanti, Swarupa Shanti is described as Brahma Nirvanam. Nirvanam, Nirvikalpa. There is no Vikalpa. There is no duality. That is what the Shanti is. And this is the this comes from that feeling, from that understanding that one is Purna, a fullness, an oceanic fullness, just like the ocean, again described in a few verses before the one that I just chanted, in the second chapter. Apuryamanam achala pratishtham. So this ocean that is enjoying its fullness, one day a restless roaring fullness, another day a placid fullness. The placid fullness is what, that appearance, that is, that is the external world. It can be calm, it can be roaring, it can be full of disturbance, but I am not disturbed. The ocean, the Bhagavad Gita says, is not disturbed if a few more rivers decide to enter into it, or a few more rivers decide to not enter into it. It's not disturbed. It makes no difference because it was already infinite, already full. Tadvat kamaha pravishanti sarve. Kamaha means this, not just desires. The impressions of the world enter the jnani in the form of objects of desire, objects that are there, everything, thoughts, etc. They enter the jnani, and and then they make no difference. Why? Because of that fullness. Sashantim apnoti. Na kama kami, not the one that is focused on getting relative shanti. This is a big clue. Give up the pursuit of relative shanti and go to the Shastra for the pursuit of absolute shanti. When absolute shanti is gained, it includes relative shanti, because you are the source of disturbance ultimately. You are disturbed by yourself. That disturbance, because you are the only thing that there is. And if that disturbance is taken into account, then what? Nothing else need to happen. Nothing else needs to happen. No other thing needs to come in the, come and remove the Ashanti, because that Ashanti has been deemed as mithya. And then what? Shivam. Shivam. Oh, there's one more thing. In Avyapadeshyam, we have to do one more thing. Let us do that and then come back to Shivam. Avyapadeshyam, it means, also means, since Vyapadesha means Shabda, it also shows the limitation of words in connection to revealing the limitless. This is something we've already seen, but it's a little interesting to see it from this standpoint. Words are finite after all. And what do words convey? Words can convey nouns, jati. Words can convey adjectives, guna. Words can convey actions, kriya. Words can convey relationship, sambandha, like Rama's bow. Jati, tree. Adjective, tall tree. Kriya, the growing tree. The tree grows. Kriya, action. And then the fruit belonging to the tree, sambandha. This is all that the words can convey. This is all these delimitations of the limitations of the no, the language. And then how, and how can the words be used to even indirectly reveal the Atma? Atma doesn't belong to a jati. Atma, even though it's a noun grammatically, it is not one among many. It's not a species. You have bread, butter, and then what? Jam, Atma. No, you, you put it in any group of words, it doesn't belong because all three are Satya. This one is, all three are Mithya. This one is Satya. Bread, butter, jam, Atma. Not a match. Hat, coat, umbrella, Atma. Not a match. Banana, orange, apple, Atma. Not a match. Why? Because of Atma, banana is. Because of apple, because of Atma, apple is. Because of Atma, any other fruit is, any other root is. So therefore, Satyam and Mithya. So waker, sleeper, dreamer, Turiya. Again, not a match. There is only Turiya because of which waker, sleeper, dreamer exist. So Atma is not a jati, not one among many things that has to be known. So how are the words that reveal nouns, reveal the Atma? Not possible. And then Atma is not is not an adjective. There can be no adjectives to Atma. Tall Atma, short Atma, beautiful Atma, ugly Atma. No such thing possible. Why? Because there's only one of a kind. An adjective is comparative by nature, and it is to distinguish others from its own kind that adjectives are deployed. No adjective possible. And then Kriya, what does the Atma do? We saw in the last class, the answer is nothing. Avyavaharya. Nothing. It cannot do anything. It's incapable of transaction. It's incapable of any kind of transaction to begin with. And so, therefore, all the verbs are cancelled from the language, nouns cancelled from the language, verbs cancelled from the language, adjectives cancelled from the language. And then what? What is left? Sambandha, relationships. Atma is related to hat, coat, umbrella. I told you it's not possible. Satyam and Mithya cannot become friends, much less get married. They cannot go for a walk together. They cannot even shake hands. This is what, because the realm of action, the realm of what's the word for it, differences, etc., belong to the empirical reality, not to the absolute reality, which is you. And then the empirical reality is also you, but you are not the empirical reality. This is what has to be understood. So therefore the words in Avyapadeshyam, I forgot to mention this, the words fall short of describing which Atma. That alone is Brahman. That alone has to be known. So then Shivam. Shivam here means pure. Pure. And then why does this word have to be pointed out? Because generally one thinks oneself to be impure. And that's why the religions, especially in the West, they have a big salvific and forgiving component. Like you have to atone, you have to act for forgive, you have to ask actions for forgiveness. Even in the Hindu tradition, there is acts of atonement, prayashchitta karma. Why? Because one knows one doesn't feel pure. Why? Because one is going against dharma all the time. Kimaham sadhu na karavam, kimaham papamakaravamiti. Iti. How come I didn't do the right thing? Half of the life is like the regret, guilt. And what about the other half? How come I did the wrong thing? Both are there. Both are there. And both of these conspire to make this individual miserable. Miserable jiva. I cannot live with my own omissions and commissions. This is the guilty jiva. So, guilty jiva must be harboring a guilty atma within. No such thing. Guilt is an as though construct upon the Atma, and the Atma is free of guilt. And how do you know? Even as you see, even as you tell yourself, I feel guilty, you are not really guilty. When you say I feel guilty, you're recognizing that there is a sensation of guilt. That is what you're recognizing, because you're not guilty. If you were guilty atma, you would never be able to recognize guilt. It becomes your swarupa, which can never be objectified. But you do objectify the guilt. So that is one source of the impurity, is one's own omissions and commissions. One cannot stand what one did not do, one cannot stand what one did, and thereby, the guilt comes. If only. A series of life is just if only. And it stretches all the way to birth. If only I had been born under different stars. I wish I had been born, yes, just 6 hours earlier. Then the Jupiter would have been in the right place. Then I would have studied Vedanta as a baby. My first words would have been Tattvamasi. That's what my first words would have been. Just 6 hours prior, I would have had a horoscope like Ashtavakra. Ashtavakra, in the womb, he was correcting his mother's wrong answers when she was giving in Vedanta wrong answers. So this is what is this, like Ashtavakra. I would have been born all knowledgeable. Or maybe like Bhagavan, what is that, what's his name, Ramana Maharshi. All the sages, I would have been like that. 6 hours earlier, the stars were in the perfect place. And in fact, in India, sadly, people do that. India is probably the Caesarean capital of the world. Why? Because everybody wants their child to become brilliant, and they look at the horoscope even before the child is born. And they con the doctors, they pressure the doctors that please bring out the baby exactly at this time, 6:56 p.m. and a few seconds. 6:56.7 p.m. Poor doctor also goes along, because doctor also has to make a living. And what else are they going to do when this person, who is hale, the mother to be, is young, hale, hearty, is capable of giving a natural birth? But yet pressured by the family, people pressured. But of course, Bhagavan has the last word. What happens? The car of the doctor has a flat tire on the way to the surgery. Finished, just a few, you know, 2 hours delay, finished, enough, gone. The ascendant changes, the lagna changes. If the lagna changes, everything changes. And the ascendant reigns only for 2.5 hours. Finished. Lagna changes. That's accomplished already. And the fellow has a miserable horoscope, despite the planning of the parents. And in one case that I know, what happened, they had done all these things. And there is one, so sad, in India. There is one Mula Nakshatra, and they say the Mula Nakshatra, it's unlucky for the parents if the child is born in Mula Nakshatra. Come on, Mula is one of the 27 nakshatras. It is auspicious by itself. You can't hold the child culpable because the parents got sick, or what, god forbid, they passed away or whatever. So nobody wants the child to be born in Mula Nakshatra, just like nobody wants a west facing house. This is again another problem, vastu wise. And so in this one case, they didn't want the child to be born in Mula Nakshatra. So hurriedly they scheduled the surgery, and they said, okay, do the surgery. And then, so that Mula Nakshatra will not be there. They thought they had looked at the Panchanga almanac properly. And then what happened? The surgery was done. And then happily they went to the astrologer to get the horoscope of the baby drawn. Surprise, Mula Nakshatra. What? After undergoing surgery, after undergoing so much pain, stitches, all this nonsense, staying in the hospital, Mula Nakshatra again. It's born under the Mula star. How? Why? How could you do this to us? Well, the Mula Nakshatra dragged on, and they had not seen that. They thought it ended, but actually it had continued a little bit. That was enough. It had continued a little bit enough. Just a few minutes into the birth of this baby. you know Bhagavan has the last laugh. And then and then so this is all what, to try to become pure, to try to become this, that, all these things, to get rid of the guilt, to arrange so that one can have a good life. This is not the way to get shivam, okay? So then the other half of the problem is feeling hurt. If guilt is the cause, if omissions and commissions of one's own self is one's own omissions and commissions are the cause of guilt, other people's omissions and commissions are the cause of hurt. And the other half of the life is, why did they do this to me? Why didn't they do this to me? This is what is spent. The other half of the life is spent in that. Ayyo. What a one life gone, another life guilty, 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 hurty, 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 guilty, marries hurty, hurty, and guilty, live unhappily ever after. Because guilty keeps apologizing, and the hurt one, it's never enough. So in a way, it's a successful marriage. Very, very strange. This is samsara. So Shivam, free of papa punya, pure, free of regret, free of hurt, free of guilt, are you. You are free of guilt and hurt. Guilt and hurt are conditions of the mind, ahankara, etc. That it's a guilt and hurt are conspiracy theories conspired by the mind in relation to the ahankara, and they can be dropped. They can be dropped in the wake of this knowledge. What knowledge? Advaitam. Advaitam means without a second. That knowledge that gives you the oneness that you crave for in relation to everything. You want to see oneness, you want harmony. That is what Shanti is. Shanti is Advaita. Swarupa Shanti has to be based in Advaita. In Advaya Atma alone there is Shanti. No other Shanti is absolute. And then what? Shivam, Advaitam, we have seen. Ayam Atma Brahma iti pratiti, that is Advaita. Advaita is not something that is created or a product, it's already there. It is recognized through Vritti Jnanam, produced by the words of the Veda, handled as a pramana by the teacher. And then what? After Advaitam, after saying it is non-dual, Chaturtham Manyante. Shastrajnaha, Atmajnaninaha, the knowers of the Atma, the knowers of the Shastra, consider this to be the fourth. Why? Because from the standpoint of 1, 2, 3 that is counted, this fourth is the one that swallows up all the three. And in fact, it swallows up every single dyad, every single dichotomy, everything which it swallows up. Chaturtham manyante, they consider it. Why? Upadeshartham, in order to teach. So here Chaturtham manyante is not that they consider it for the fourth. No, for the sake of teaching, they deploy this prakriya, avasthatraya prakriya. Therefore, they consider this the fourth for teaching purposes. All the shastrajnas, atmajnanis, they consider this to be the fourth, by way of teaching, by way of unfolding and revealing the truth of themselves, for the students, not themselves, for the students. They consider it, they deploy it as the fourth, so that it is easy to see that one is not the waker, not the dreamer, not the sleeper. But the sleeper, waker, dreamer is what? Blessed by Turiya. One is that Turiya. So the Turiya doesn't deny the waking state. Waker is Turiya. Turiya is not the waker. Turiya does not come into some kind of a conflict with a sleep state. Turiya never disappears, even in sleep. Sleep is nothing but Turiya. Sleeper is Turiya. Turiya is not the sleeper. Turiya never goes to sleep. That's why you can recognize the sleep condition. And then finally, what? You know, dreamer, nothing but Turiya. Dreamer cannot be outside of Turiya. Turiya is not the dreamer. Turiya transcends the dreamer. Iti, in this manner, when the methodology is deployed, then does the Shastrajñas consider to this to be the fourth. Abba, what is this? Saha Atma. This is you. Oh, this is me? Yeah, I'm not the waker. No, I'm not just the sleeper. No, I'm not just the dreamer. No, I'm not guilty. No, I'm not hurt. No, I'm not saddled with prapancha, samsara. No, I'm free. Yes, I'm the shanti that I crave. Yes, I'm non-dual. Yes. Savigneyaha, this has to be known. This is the only thing that is worthy of being known. This is to be known. Why? Because that's the only way to gain this Atma. You are never separate from the Atma. It is not something away from you that you have to go get. Atma Jnanam is not Janyam. It is not something that is, it's a product. It's not samskaryam or vikaryam. It's not something that has to be cleaned. And because Atma is never dirty to begin with. I want a clean Atma. No, it is already Shivam Shantam. And then it is not Janyam or Utpadyam. It is not a product. And then it is not something to go and get. It is not away apyam. It is not away from you that you have to go and get. So all these actions are terminated, negated for the Atma. For gaining the Atma, actions are useless because it is not separate from you. If there is a sense of separation, it is only because of self ignorance, and therefore vigneyaha. It was enough to have said Gneyaha. Vigneyaha, it has to be known and assimilated as yourself. You have to own it up. That is what is that is what is the point of this mantra, where Chaturtham Manyante, this Atma with this Atma with the Mandukya's unique teaching methodology has to be assimilated, has to be known as Brahman, as Ishvara, as the truth of you. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadagya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. One announcement I have: from the 26th to the 29th, there are some lectures on the Bhagavad Gita in the Shivananda Ashram, Bahamas. It is available online on Zoom, free of cost, but they ask that you register for it. And I'm sending you a link. You open the chat pod, and that is, you click on that link and you can register there. They just ask that you do a free registration. It doesn't cost money to attend, and then later on I'll send the proper timings for that. So that is from the 26th to the 29th of January. And then again on the 24th we have what is that, we have Bodhasara. Before that, tomorrow we have Shatashloki. We have Shatashloki tomorrow, 8 to 9. Tomorrow, sorry, my time, 8 to 9, 6:30 to 7:30, my time, 8 to 9, your time. And then, so 8 to 9 p.m. And then, what else? Eastern time. And then, then we have this. Then we have 24th. Then 30th we have the 30th we have that what is that called, Philadelphia Satsang. Very popular it is. You can log on to that. I forget what it is. I think something about moksha, which is, of course, our topics are limited, but what we have to say is infinite. Atma Brahman, Atma Brahman, same thing I've been teaching for so long. So that is the, that is what every teacher teaches. So on the 30th, that is what is there. And so these are some things to look forward to till the end of this month. Okay. All the best. Any other questions? Yeah. So, yeah, what is the topic? Something Bhagavad Gita. And because, since it's a yoga ashram, I thought I will talk about how the word yoga is used. And that is what it is. And so that is basically what we will be studying. Okay. All right. They will be very short classes. Actually, if they have some music before the class, some meditation, and then some all this, you can skip all that if you want. And then, so you can, yeah, I can tell you the timing of the classes. You can log on at that time. So I think in the mornings, it's just about 20-25 minutes. Nice way to start the morning. And then in the evening, it's about 45 minutes. So short classes, so there is about six of them, and then we will enjoy some Bhagavad Gita talks there. All right. Any other questions? Yes, wonderful that you were able to take that. Very nice. This is a very special Upanishad. And be well. Take care.
Amma, may I ask you a question?
Yes, certainly.
Um, when you were talking about vritti,
Yeah,
vritti is that were shanika, so
yeah,
they are destroyed. But the I thought is also a vritti, right?
yeah. But the I thought is based on I, that is not a vritti. Ah. The I thought has its alambana,
Mhm.
on that which is not which is not a vritti. See, if I cognize rose, rose is finite, correct? Yeah, so the finite vritti is cognizing the finite rose. Here, the I thought is cognizing, or is basically broadcasting the infinite. That's a better way to say it. It's broadcasting the infinite.
So when
Okay?
we say things like your ego disappears and we say the
Mm,
I-ness
we don't
disappears,
say the ego disappears. You'll never hear me say that. The ego is lightened of the burden, thinking that it is the doer and the mover and the shaker of the universe. And that burden better be lightened, because otherwise one is not enlightened. So we don't say that. Even the jnani has an ego. Yeah,
which
because
is
without ego you cannot study. The I notion must be there. It has, but the I notion is walked from clinging to like a 2 year old to the body mind sense complex, clinging to the sari of the mother. The I notion is walked over to see that it is Brahman. It catches hold of itself as Brahman, as everything. It drops the catching hold of the apron strings of the body mind sense complex, because it's no longer insecure. That is what it is. So we are not trying to get rid of the ego. Then the one who gets rid has to get rid of another ego. Who is the getter ridder? That one you have to get rid of, and then you will be here all day, all night.
so
Yeah.
we can say I thought is a synonym for the ego. The
I
ego
thought is the place where the ego is recognized. That's all it is.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought
Thank you.
leads to I. Yeah. From thine words, there's somebody wrote a poem. Um, and then who is MH? Mangesh. Is that Mangesh? I don't know, but you can tell me. Uh, from thine words unfurleth the rolled up carpet of deep sleep, and in that very sleep uh, waketh the time of now, and in that very sleep dreameth the time of the past and future, and then one gets rolled up again in this wondrous carpet of deep sleep. Who watches the carpet? Who rolleth up and unfurleth the carpet? Indeed, this is a wonder beyond words. Very much. Yes, thank you, Mangesh. Yeah, wonderful. From Arizona. Wonderful. We have a nice poem to sleep on. Think of the you know think of all the avasthas as carpets being rolled and unfurled. Very nice. Wonderful. Om.
Boom.
Take
Thank you.
care. Om Namah Shivaya.
Bas.